Hello, it's Average Row, and welcome to my Mass Effect SQUADMATE tier list. If you've been following my channel for any amount of time, you'll know that Mass Effect is my favorite video game series of all time, and I know I'm not alone in that aspect. It's not necessarily a unique take, and because of that, there have been countless amounts of SQUADMATE tier lists that have been made. All have been pretty interesting, at least the ones I've watched, and I figured, you know what? With the Legendary Edition coming out, and I'm starting to make more Mass Effect content, why not make a tier list of my own? Something that's inherent to the Mass Effect series is the ability to make your own decisions, to make your own choices. And I feel like because of that, even more so than in other video games, people form their own opinions, especially about these core cast of characters. And I am no exception, so I just want to emphasize that this is just my opinion.
That's my opinion!
I've played this game several times, so I feel like I have a decent general opinion of what I think about each of these individual characters. So this should be pretty fun, but again, it's just my opinion. I would love to hear your guys' arguments in the comments and see if you agree or disagree with any of my points, or just your general idea on how I did when making this tier list. But I will say, a little bit of a disclaimer, I have put little to no prep time on my arguments. I feel like I said, I have my opinions, but I don't know if I'll be able to get my arguments across as eloquently or effectively as I would like. But again, we're just gonna have fun with this. You know, some of my opinions are gonna be pretty obvious and would almost need no explanation, right? But I will say some of them might be a little contentious, maybe a little controversial, but I feel like that's what makes a good tier list, you know? A little bit of controversy to get the discussion going, you know what I mean? But because I'm going into this just super fresh, very first time making a tier list, I will allow myself at the end to make any possible changes. You know, I'll review it one last time to make sure I have my definitive Average Row tier list displayed for you guys. And if I have enough fun, maybe I might make another one, you know, maybe about the side characters, you know what I'm saying? But I don't know, I'm just pretty excited to hop into this. And I hope you guys are excited to hear my opinion about this as well. So why don't we just go ahead and start this off with explaining my tiers. I mean, they're pretty self-explanatory. It's a pretty common setup you see in several tier lists. I feel like if you have more than 5 tiers, things just get a little too nitpicky, you know what I mean? I feel like 5 is the golden number of tiers for a tier list. It might vary here and there depending on the topic, but I feel like 5 is the way to go for us. So at the top, we obviously have S tier. This is what I would call the incredible or amazing character tier. These characters are the best of the best examples of Mass Effect squadmates in the game. They have very little to no flaws, in my opinion, and are just an overall joy to have on screen, you know, and these characters just stick with you. These are the ones that just really affect you and stick with you. So S tier, incredible stuff. A tier is what I'm calling the great or awesome tier. These aren't quite the best of the best, but they're definitely up there. Their positives greatly outweigh their negatives, but they may have a significant flaw here and there. But overall, they are great characters. B tier is what I'm calling the solid or good tier. These characters are overall good, you know, the majority of the fan base and player base like them, but they may have a very significant flaw or maybe more than one flaw that just kind of drags them down a little bit, you know. They might be edging closer to being 50-50 when it comes to positives and negatives, maybe slightly towards positive, you know what I mean? So they're not as good as some of the other characters, but they're still pretty decent, you know what I mean? Then at C tier, second from the bottom, it's what I'm calling the fine or okay tier. These characters are just okay. Most players probably don't like them all too much, and it's not like you're just wishing they'd get off your screen or anything like that, but their negatives definitely outweigh their positives. Like, what stands out most about them is maybe a significant flaw or multiple flaws, so, but they're not completely lost, which is why they're just fine, you know, they're just fine. And at the very bottom, D tier, I'm calling it the weak or lacking tier. I want to emphasize that I chose the terms weak or lacking specifically because I don't believe any of these main cast of characters are outright bad or just terrible. You know what I mean? Some of you guys out there might think otherwise and might be looking at one of these characters right now and being like, yeah, they're terrible. I wish they were just removed from the game entirely. But for me personally, I feel like the worst a Mass Effect squadmate can get is just weak or lacking. And to elaborate further on that, they're just lacking that extra something. They might have potential, but they just don't have enough to really make them comparable to any of the other characters, you know? Their flaws definitely outweigh the positive stuff I could say about them. They maybe have one redeeming quality, but when I interact with them or when I play with them, I just feel like something's missing. I need more from them, but we didn't get it, so that's why they're gonna be stuck in the bottom D tier. And one last clarification, I will be ranking the characters within the tiers. A lot of people, when they make tier lists, they don't differentiate within the tiers. They only differentiate between tiers. You know what I mean? So I will be ordering characters within the tiers from left to right. So the further left you are in a tier, the closer you are to the next tier above. I always like it when people take the time and take on that extra challenge, you know, to rank within the tiers. Because let's face it, it's already hard enough organizing these awesome characters into 5 tiers, let alone organizing them within the tiers. So I figured I'm gonna go ahead and take on that challenge and just see what I end up with. So yeah, I feel like I've kind of given my best shot when it comes to explaining how I've organized the tiers. So let's go ahead and focus on the characters, because that's what it's all about. I will be judging these characters on 2 main criteria, as well as 1 side criteria that may come in handy when it comes to ranking them within tiers or edging a character just higher or lower, you know what I mean? So the 2 main criteria is personality and how interesting they are. So again, a character could be very likable, i.e. they have a good personality, but they might not be all that interesting. You know what I mean? Conversely, they could be super interesting with a really cool backstory and motivations and things like that, but they're not very likable. I feel like a really good character has a really likable personality, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they're nice all the time. Because let's face it, some of these characters aren't really nice all the time, but they're still very likable, you know? It's really their personality connects with me, or I get a lot out of their personality. That's kind of what I'm going for with that criteria. And then interesting, how interesting they are, is their backstory interesting? Like where they come from, what have they gone through that has made them who they are now, the squad mate they are now. And then on top of that, where are they wanting to go? What are they trying to achieve? Or how are they wanting to help you as their commander? And then this sub criteria that I mentioned is what I'm calling moments. Do they have any standout moments that are just iconic, or moments that make you love them or appreciate them even more? If a character has those memorable moments, it's definitely something I want to take into consideration, but I just don't think it's fair to make it a main criteria that heavily influences my opinion, because some characters were just not written with the opportunity to have good moments. You know what I mean? And some characters only have specific moments if you so choose to have them. Like Jack has really good moments in a romance path if you take that with Jack, but not everybody does that. You know, so I just feel like that inherently makes it so that it would be unfair to make it a main criteria. So it's a sub criteria for me, but it's still an important thing to consider when forming my opinions and ranking them in my tier list. All right, I hope I've made it clear enough about how I'm approaching this tier list. So let's finally get into this. We are going to start off this tier list with everybody's favorite Drell, Thane. Right off the bat, I can say Thane is such a lovable dude. Like, what is not to like about him? You know, yes, he's done a lot of bad things, but in the end, he's a family man. He loved his wife. He loves his son. He acknowledges he wasn't always there, wasn't always the best father. And we meet him when he's at the end of his life. You know, he has this Keppel syndrome that's basically killing him, and he's trying to right the wrongs with the time he has left. Like, that's a very noble cause, and that's what I'm calling a interesting backstory. You know what I mean? And interesting goals. Thane is a top tier character for sure. And if any of these characters were a conduit, no pun intended, were a conduit for learning about a new species or a species we weren't familiar with, that's automatic bonus points, and Thane serves as the Drell ambassador in that regard to the player. We learn about the Drell and how they were uplifted by the Hanar, and we learn about their customs and, you know, how they have that ability to relive any memory in perfect sense, you know what I mean? So they're just really interesting to learn about, and we learn about them through Thane. And talking about great moments, Thane has several great moments, specifically in Mass Effect 3 when he faces off against Kai Lang to save the Solarian Dalatrass, and that heartbreaking hospital visit where his son Kolyat, his estranged son Kolyat, comes and shows that he's taken into his teachings and started learning those Drell prayers and things like that. And you help pray with Kolyat for Thane while Thane is dying on his deathbed. You know what I mean? Like, such a good moment. And then on top of that, his funeral in the Citadel DLC, led by, again, his son Kolyat. It just shows how he had that impact on the story. Again, Thane is a top tier character. But I will say, for me personally, I can't put him in S. And that's because, believe it or not, a lot of people don't like Thane. They feel like he was added because of... They just wanted to force another female romance option, you know what I mean? Or a romance option for femsheps, you know? So he was a bit ham-fisted in there, and really the only way he stands out in Mass Effect 2 after you recruit him is through those conversations, you know? And on top of that, he's sidelined in Mass Effect 3. He only has that one moment in Mass Effect 3. You don't really get to talk to him, you know, all that much. And after you do his loyalty mission, he doesn't add anything else, you know what I mean, to his character. He is who he is at that point. So really, I feel like he lacks that consistency. And on top of that, he's also not even in Mass Effect 1. So I don't know. I feel like because he's not as involved, you know, and he does come off as a bit of a forced romance in my opinion, I'm going to leave him at the very top of A tier for now. It's just below S tier. But again, I love Thane, so I can't put him any lower than A. Next up, we have a lot of people's favorite character, understandably so. It's the oh-so-lovable, oh-so-talkative Mordin Solus, our resident Solarian doctor. When I think of Mordin, I just always think about how whenever I'm making my rounds in the SR2, in Mass Effect 2, I always look forward to talking to Mordin, no matter what. He's always interesting. He always has something funny to talk about or funny to say. You know, like, even if you're a male shep and you approach him too much, he's saying, like, oh, you like talking to me? You must, like, want to romance me and mate with me, you know? And then he says, like, that's just not a good idea, you know what I mean? He's just so wacky and zany and eccentric, and he's also a fighter too. He's very capable. He's very smart, you know. He's just so lovable as well because he's not afraid of admitting his mistakes. He takes everything into consideration and he doesn't have much pride, you know. He's always willing. He'll be the first one to admit that the genophage was wrong or things like that. And the thing is, if there's one word I could describe Mordin with that not many people attribute to him, it's courageous. At the drop of a hat, without even hesitating, he chooses to sacrifice himself to save, you know, to save the Krogan and cure the genophage. And why? It's because it's the logical reason. Someone else might have gotten it wrong, you know what I mean? And he has so many iconic quotes, you know, and he has that iconic moment like that I just mentioned where he cures the genophage. If it wasn't for Mordin, the genophage would never have been cured, you know? So I just feel like because of how funny he is to talk to, how much I look forward to talking and interacting with him, and how he always keeps me on my toes because you never know what's about to come out of this guy's mouth, you know? And he's so likable, he's courageous, he has great moments. Mordin Solus is an easy S tier for me. Easy S tier. Alright, next up, we got Zaid Masani, the feared mercenary, bounty hunter, whatever you want to call him. The best thing I can say about Zaid is that he is a really good foundation for a character. I think of Finn in the Disney Star Wars movies, like an ex-stormtrooper, right? Who escaped the First Order and is now wanting to join the good guys. That's an interesting foundation, right? But what happened with Finn? Nothing. They didn't do anything. And I'm bringing that to Zaid now, because I do feel like, you know, he founded the Blue Suns. He's a super feared human bounty hunter. Like, you don't often associate tough, rugged characters with a human. You know, usually you think of Batarians, you think of Vorcha, you think of Krogan, you know, those terminus system species that are just like very intimidating and you want to avoid at all costs. But the thing is, Zaid's a human and you still feel that way about him. But they don't really take him anywhere. He doesn't really grow. Even when you convince him to not go after Vigo or Vito, whatever his name is, you know, the other founder of the Blue Suns that betrayed him and whatnot. I feel like in Mass Effect 2 is the only opportunity you have to connect with him, but for the majority of the time, he's literally just reminiscing on his past or talking about wanting to get Vito. He doesn't offer anything in the here and now. He doesn't offer anything interesting for the future. And he only has a quick cameo in Mass Effect 3 where he doesn't even do anything. You walk in, he's standing there, you talk to him, and then you leave. That's literally it. He doesn't really do anything in Mass Effect 3. So I can only judge him really by his appearance in Mass Effect 2. And again, not much happened with him. His conversations weren't even that interesting. You know, he's a DLC character like Kasumi. We'll get to Kasumi later, but his conversations aren't that interesting because, again, he's always reminiscing, and you kind of know what you're getting with them. Okay, picture a tough bounty hunter, and you get Zaid. That's it. A tough space bounty hunter, boom, Zaid. Okay, but they don't do anything to make him more interesting past that, you know, so I don't know. For me personally, this might seem a bit harsh, but he's going in weak for me. He's lacking that extra something, lacking that extra oomph to make him a higher tier. You know, I gotta put him in weak. All right, next up, I know a lot of people when they're looking at Mass Effect tier list, they want to know what is your opinion on Ashley Williams. You know, when you think of controversial Mass Effect characters, the first one that comes to mind is this girl here, Gunnery Chief Ashley Williams, as she's introduced in Mass Effect 1. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I like Ashley Williams. Yes, I said it. I like Ashley. I do. I don't think she's S tier or anything crazy like that, but I do feel like people hate her more than she deserves. The thing about Ashley is, if you can't look past her flaws that are oh so present and oh so evident in Mass Effect 1, you're not gonna like her. And I respect that. Some people, they just can't look past the fact that she's xenophobic, she's rude, she's a jerk to your other lovable characters, especially Liara. Little old Liara, super shy and really socially awkward in Mass Effect 1. How can you be mean to someone like that? Well, Ashley has found a way to do that, and she doesn't shy away from doing that. And if you can't look past that, that's fine. That's okay. But the thing is, there's so much more to her character, in my opinion, than just the jerk human girl in Mass Effect 1 and the jerk human girl that doesn't join you in Mass Effect 2. I feel like a lot of people need to understand, at least in my opinion, there needed to be a character, there needed to be a squad mate, more specifically, in Mass Effect 1 that wasn't just a yes man or a yes woman. There needed to be a little bit of friction to make things interesting. Think about the first Avengers movie. That movie would have been way less interesting if they all met up and just got along right away. You know what I mean? But they didn't. You know, they had friction and they overcame that. Ashley offers that to the Mass Effect 1 squad, and I feel like that goes overlooked and underappreciated. And you might say, oh yes, there's a way to do that without being an outright jerk, like look at Rex, you know? But let's face it, Rex isn't outright rude to anybody. He kind of minds his own business. He doesn't really cause much friction, you know what I mean? Whereas Ashley, she adds that interesting, in my opinion, interesting dynamic between her and Liara and maybe her and other aliens, you know? And she represents what, honestly, a lot of, it would be foolish to think that if humans were to suddenly become a spacefaring species and, you know, meet up with aliens, there wouldn't be humans that just don't really like working with them or aren't really comfortable with that yet. You know, just look at Navigator Presley. He's another character that's just like that at the beginning, you know? So I feel like Ashley is a necessary character to have in Mass Effect. And the fact that she's so flawed in Mass Effect 1, she really has room to grow in Mass Effect 3. And I do feel like they redeem her character to an extent in Mass Effect 3. But the thing is, she's always had things that are likable about her, you know? Not everybody's perfect. Ashley's not perfect. But if you look at, okay, what's good about her? You know, she's a family girl. She cares about her family. She wants to be a good role model to her sisters. And she has goals. She has things she wants to achieve. She wants to redeem her family name after her grandpa disgraced it, you know, with his mistaken, I forget what it was, it on Shang-Chi or something. She has goals and she wants to be the best soldier she can be. And I respect that about her. So I know it sounds like I'm arguing for her to be S or A tier, you know, but let's face it, you know, she is very rude and very abrasive in Mass Effect 1, you know, and I do feel like that hurts her character. And even more so, the Mass Effect 2 encounter where she refuses to join your crew, it does leave a sour taste in the mouth, even for players like me that overall like her. So I can't really put her any higher than C tier, in my opinion. A lot of people will instantly put her in the lowest tier possible, and that's fine. I respect that. But for me personally, I feel like Ashley deserves a little bit more than to be a bottom tier character. And on top of that, she does have a good moment, in my opinion. It's not an amazing moment. It's no curing the genophage moment, but there's a moment in Mass Effect 3 where you motivate her and you help her comfort her sister, who you hear about in Mass Effect 1, who got with this guy and whatnot. She married that guy and her husband died. Ashley's brother-in-law died, and you help comfort her when she's trying to comfort her sister. She has that vulnerable side to her, and I really appreciate that. So Ashley gets a lot of flack, but I think she deserves to be C tier. She's a fine character. She's okay. All right, next up we got another fan favorite. It's Grunt, the perfect Krogan. My favorite thing about Grunt is just how freaking cool he is. From the very first time you encounter a Krogan, i.e. Rex in Cora's Den, you're like, dude, these aliens are not like the other ones here. They are huge, they're intimidating, they have these deep voices and you just know they can mess shit up, you know what I mean? And then when you face off against them in combat, you always have to take the game a little bit more seriously. Make sure your choices are a little bit better than usual when you have a bunch of Krogan in your path. So then when in Mass Effect 2, you meet up with Dr. O'Keir, and he tells you that he's crafted, he's synthesized, he's created the perfect Krogan warrior. What does that instill in your brain? I remember the first time I played the game and I saw it zooms up on the tank that Grunt's in, and I'm just like, what the heck? I need to open this right now. I need to see what this guy's all about. And when you open it, he comes charging out, pins you against the wall, and says something along the lines of like, before I kill you, tell me your name, or I need a name. But then on top of that, he's also funny. He's so unexpectedly funny because of like the way he's so blunt about things, and is just learning about things and learning about other humans and other species and things like that. He's like the best of both worlds. He's a super intimidating and powerful character, but he's also really funny and lovable. But with all that said, I do feel like Grunt's biggest flaw is the fact that he lacks depth. And to elaborate on that, there's not much more to him than what you get on the surface. After you help him with his rite of passage, he knows what he is. He's a Krogan warrior that wants to kill whatever is in his way. And he doesn't really grow much past that. He doesn't really need to grow much past that. I'm just making an observation. He lacks that extra depth. He lacks things that you can sympathize with and feel emotions about him, because that's not really what you look to Grunt for, but that doesn't change the fact that Grunt does lack depth, and I do feel like an S tier character has that extra depth to him. So because of that, I'm going to put him up in A tier. Let me see here. I think I'm going to put him here. I could adjust this. Thane and Grunt are pretty neck and neck for me, but I'm going to leave Thane a little bit up above him, because for me personally, I do like Thane as a character a little more. I'm more interested in learning about Thane than I am about Grunt. So I'm going to leave Thane just above him, but Grunt is a very solid A tier. He's another character I just can't see putting anything below A tier. All right, next up, we got Jacob Taylor. Jacob is he's just Jacob. The best thing I can say about Jacob is that he's a very likable guy. In Mass Effect 3, he gets married and he's excited to be a dad. Good for him. He's a really likable guy, very nice. That's about it when it comes to Jacob, though. Really, the standout things about him, for me, is that he just lacks anything. He lacks anything more than, I'm Jacob Taylor, I'm your lieutenant on the Normandy SR2. You know what I mean? He doesn't even get a cool moment in Mass Effect 3. His mission is the worst mission when it comes to the Mass Effect 2 squadmate missions in Mass Effect 3, right? You have missions when you meet up with Kasumi, with Samara, with Zaid, with Jacob, with Miranda, things like that. And Jacob's is the worst out of the lot. And it shouldn't come as a surprise, because guess what? He also has the worst loyalty mission out of the lot in Mass Effect 2. I'm not making any judgments about the situation with his dad or anything. I'm just saying, gameplay-wise, just overall quality of his loyalty mission, it's the worst, So he doesn't even have that going for him. And on top of that, doesn't have a backstory. He was in the Alliance, right? And then he left the Alliance to join Cerberus because he liked Cerberus more. And that's it. He lacks a backstory. He's not interesting at all. Again, only thing I can say about him is he's ripped and he's a nice guy. That's about it. And I feel like you kind of get an idea of where I'm going with this. Jacob Taylor, I'm sorry, my guy, but I'm putting you in D tier. I am going to put him above Zaid, though, because although Zaid has an interesting backstory, or at least a more interesting backstory than Jacob, I do think Jacob is a more likable person than Zaid. You know, I feel like Zaid, overall, he doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about anybody else on the crew. He's just there for the money. You know what I mean? I never really felt like he was loyal after his loyalty mission. All the other Mass Effect 2 squad mates, I felt, had a reason to be loyal to you after the Mass Effect 2 mission. But unless you go the Renegade path in Zaid's loyalty mission, I feel like it doesn't make much sense. You know, and I know I'm talking about Zaid now, but I'm trying to just clarify why I'm putting Jacob above him. I just like Jacob as a person more. That's really the only reason. But they're both D tier characters as far as I'm concerned. Okay, I'm really excited about this one. Up next, we have Jack, or Subject Zero, as some know her as. Jack is probably the most consistently underrated character, in my opinion. You know, a lot of people get like PTSD flashbacks when you get Jack and she's just a straight up jerk and is rude to everybody. They're like, oh, okay, here we go. It's Ashley from Mass Effect 1 all over again. You know what I mean? And I feel like that kind of hurts a lot of people's opinion of her, and they don't really grow with her as the writers were intending. Jack is a very sympathetic character, in my opinion. It doesn't take a genius to realize she's so rude and so closed off because she's been hurt in her past. Like, her backstory is tragic compared to a lot of these other characters, you know? She was kidnapped from her mom as a child because of her biotic potential and just basically tortured day in, day out, isolated from everybody else, and Cerberus just messed her up just to like see what they can do with humans and biotics, you know? So messed up, and that's why she's so closed off. And underneath that hardened shell is just someone who you just want to give a big hug, you know what I mean? I love Jack, and I love the fact that, again, just like Ashley did in Mass Effect 1, she adds that extra friction in Mass Effect 2. She keeps things interesting. I always look forward to talking to Jack, always. And I've never personally romanced her, but I've done some research, watched some videos, and I can say that Jack's romance is also pretty good. I definitely wouldn't advise romancing her over other characters unless you're just wanting to see what it's like. But romancing her does make her more vulnerable, and you do get to see more of her vulnerable side, and that just, in my opinion, that just gives her extra bonus points as far as I'm concerned. You know, Jack is a very underrated character, and in Mass Effect 3, it's her shining moment. You know, when you go to Grissom Academy and you realize she wants to be a role model now. You know, but the thing is, similar to other characters on this list, she does mature and grow, but she never loses that edge. She never loses that personality that makes her who she is, you know? So again, I gotta say, this might be controversial, but I'm putting Jack at the bottom of A tier. Again, she's not super likable, but she's just got so much going on that I find really endearing and interesting. So I'm gonna put her at the bottom of A tier. All right, next up, we got James Vega. James Vega is one of only 3 new character squad mates introduced in Mass Effect 3. Again, if you've played Mass Effect 3, you already know kind of where I'm going with this. Here's the thing about James. He's a very likable guy. Similar to a lot of characters on this list, he just wants to be the best soldier he can be. He wants to serve the Alliance. He wants to protect Earth at all costs, and I can really respect that about him, you know? I also really like his personality. He's a really fun guy to be around. He's a really fun guy to talk to, you know? He doesn't ever overstay his welcome, in my opinion. You know, his conversations aren't just quick, short ones, but, you know, when you do have a lengthier conversation with him, it's fine. You know, I like talking with James. He's a good friend. It's also cool to have a character that looks up to you in Mass Effect 3. You know, it really drives home how far you've come as Commander Shepard. You know, that you have soldiers like James who, canon-wise, are very capable soldiers looking up to someone like you know? So I do like that aspect of his character as well. But let's face it, he's got no backstory. at all. And his goals and his character doesn't really go anything past I want to save Earth. That's it. His character is really carried by how likable of a guy I think he is, because I do like him a lot. And on top of that, he doesn't really have any moments. He doesn't have any good moments at all. The standout moment for him in Mass Effect 3 is when he goes out of his way to sacrifice himself to try to catch or prevent Dr. Eva Kore from leaving. But he doesn't really die or anything. It's just like he acts rashly and does that whole thing. That's it. If you could call that a moment, So I'm going to have to give James bottom of C tier. And I mean just C tier. Really, the reason he's not top of D tier for me, because he's really similar to Jacob. They lack an engaging backstory. They don't really have a good moments, but he's a loyal, likable guy that wants to help you. But again, the reason that he just edges into C tier is because I like him, So put him in the bottom of C tier. I feel like anything higher than that, it would be a stretch. All right, next up, we got a lot of people's favorite character, and it is the one and only Erdnot Rex. Right off the bat, Rex, hands down, is the most interesting Mass Effect 1 squad mate. He also has the most interesting introduction of any of the Mass Effect 1 squad mates. You had this big Krogan saying, Fist ordered me to kill you if you were to show up. But he's not. He's giving him a warning. Why, you ask? It's because Rex is awesome, and he's intimidating, and he's one of the best mercenaries in the galaxy, and he ends up leading the Krogan back to their former glory. He knows what he wants as well. He wants to save the Krogan people. He wants to save his people. He wants to bring them back to glory, and he does that in the end because he has that fierce determination, that unwavering set of values that just makes him who he is, and I can't help but just love him for that, And like I mentioned with Thane, he is the conduit of the Krogan for the players. We learn about the Krogan Genophage and the Krogan rebellions through Rex. We're introduced to those key concepts in Mass Effect lore through Rex, and that's why he's the most interesting Mass Effect 1 squad mate in my opinion, And he's always fun to talk to, even in Mass Effect 3. And just like Grunt, he's unexpectedly funny. And similarly to Jack, he has softened a little bit. I feel like he's a little bit more hardened in Mass Effect 1, but as he becomes more chummy with you, by the time Mass Effect 3 comes around, he's a bit softer. But the thing is, you still don't doubt that he could kick someone's ass at the drop of a hat. You know what I'm saying? He still doesn't lose that X factor that made you fall in love with them at the very beginning. He combines a lot of things that I like about other characters into one character, and for that, Rex is an easy S tier for me. And I'm going to leave him just below Mordin. And again, just like with Grunt and Thane, they're pretty neck and neck. I could easily switch them like this, but I just like Mordin's personality more. That's just a very personal opinion to me. Mordin does also have that extra depth to his character that I feel Rex, quote unquote, lacks a little bit. But again, Rex is just so cool. You can't not put him in S tier. So it's an easy S tier for me. Alright, next up we got Samara, a very interesting character, and I feel like my opinion on her is a bit controversial. And I say that because I don't think I like her as much as other people like her. And before you Samara fans get worried, I don't outright just think she's a bottom tier character. Samara is definitely interesting. She's basically an Asari Jedi. She's a Justicar, has this interesting set of values, and she offers something that other characters don't, and that is an unfaltering dedication to a clear set of values. I'm not saying no other character has a hard set of values that they stay loyal to, but let's be real. If you think of anybody that is just loyal to a specific set of values, you automatically think of Samara because she has that Justicar code, and I feel like that offers an interesting dynamic that other characters just don't offer. So she's definitely very interesting and very cool. A super powerful Asari biotic. I can only imagine how powerful she becomes after the games are over. But really the biggest issue I have with Samara is she's just not very fun to me. She's very monotone and she doesn't really express herself much. She's very regal, and there's something that I can appreciate about that. She's very reverent, I guess you could say. And that definitely contributes, like I said, to the coolness factor, but in terms of enjoyment, I don't really enjoy talking to her as much as I do the other characters. But she does have that interesting backstory. She has a great mission in Mass Effect 3. That temple with her daughters Rila and Falere and things like that. And her loyalty mission is also really cool with Morinth and all of that stuff. So she's interesting enough to at least keep her near the top of this list. But she's also kind of hindered by the fact that I just don't think she's all that fun. So with all that considered, she is a solid character for me, right down the middle. You know, she's likable, I like her, but she's just not that fun, not that engaging. But that doesn't take away or detract from her interesting backstory and character motivations and things like that. So she's a solid character through and through for me. All right, next up, Kaidan Alenko. What can I say about Kaidan Alenko? Here's the thing. I feel like a lot of people nowadays, a lot of Mass Effect fans nowadays, have this revisionist attitude towards Kaidan. Like, people are, for some reason, trying to convince everybody else that Kaidan is a better character than he actually is. Now, I'm not going to outright crap on Kaidan, but I will say he is not my favorite character. He is my least favorite Mass Effect 1 character by a country mile, and as far as the whole trilogy is concerned, he's definitely bottom tier for me, you know, but the thing is, he does have things I like about him, and he's an interesting one for me, because I personally feel Kaidan is the clear and obvious choice to sacrifice on Virmire in Mass Effect 1. I not only think that Ashley is a better character to keep throughout the trilogy, I also feel like Kaidan's character is enhanced by sacrificing him on Virmire, if that makes any sense. And the thing is, Kaidan kind of fills that Agent Coulson type niche that a lot of good stories use really well, and that's that character that he's just a good guy. He's a lot of other characters' moral compass. He's loyal. He's that guy you can look to when you need a shoulder to lean on. You know what I mean? And because of that, I feel like sacrificing him on Virmire services the narrative in a way that he becomes that spark that the rest of the Mass Effect 1 squad needs to really get that resolve, that extra push they need to finally take down Saren and Sovereign, just like Agent Coulson's death does in the first Avengers movie. You know what I mean? I feel like Kaidan's character serves that and does that better than Ashley's sacrifice would. So I do attribute the Virmire sacrifice to Kaidan, and that for me does give him bonus points. He does have that good moment to his character. But with all of this nice stuff said about Kaidan, let that not detract from the fact that this guy, talking to this guy, is like talking to a piece of cardboard, in my opinion. He is not interesting at all. His voice just puts me to sleep. He's very much in the past. You know, the only thing interesting he has to talk about is his backstory and how, you know, he was in Bot and he had Rana and, you know, killed Vernus and things like that. And that's how he grew into a biotic and whatever. He's just not interesting, in my opinion. You cannot compare him to the likes of Tali, to the likes of Garrus, to the likes of Rex, to the likes of Liara in Mass Effect 1. You just can't. I also don't feel like Kaidan's refusal to join you in Mass Effect 2 makes as much sense as it does with Ashley. You know, so that it's just confusing to me. If you were to not sacrificing him on Virmire, I feel like him refusing to join you in Mass Effect 2 goes against the character they built in Mass Effect 1, in my opinion, more so than it does with Ashley, because Ashley, you know her, she's Alliance through and through. She has that, again, she has that set of philosophies that she sticks to, you know. So when she sees you join Cerberus, she might like you, but she doesn't trust them, you know, so she doesn't join you. I feel like Kaidan would be more like Tali or Garrus, where, you know, they might be able to put their dislike of Cerberus aside if it means helping you out, you know? So, I don't know. I just feel like it doesn't make sense to save Kaidan, and because of that, I can't put him any higher than C tier. But a lot of people might put him in D tier. A lot of people, for some reason, might be chucking him up at A or S or something like that. Like, where did that come from? But for me, he's got to be a C tier, and I'm going to put him above James. Although I do like James more. I do have a better time talking with James than I do with Kaidan. The thing James lacks is a good moment, and I feel like Kaidan's sacrifice on Virmire serves as that moment for him that pushes him above James. So the thing is, I like Ashley more, but Kaidan's definitely not bottom tier in my opinion. You know, but I just want to make it clear For all you revisionists out there, I just don't think he's a top tier character. I don't think he's worth saving past Vermeer. The stuff he brings to the table in Mass Effect 3 just isn't enough for me. So he's got to be a C tier for me. He's okay. He's fine. Okay, next up, it's the iconic Garrus Vicarian, the Turian best buddy throughout the trilogy. He, along with Tali, is one of the only squad mates that are playable squad mates in each game. He is loyal through and through. He's the embodiment of loyalty. He's Shepard's best friend. He's just a cool guy. I don't want to spend too much time on Garrus because you guys know he's going up here. You just know it. He's going up here. He's a top tier character. Easy S tier. He's just got everything. He has an interesting backstory with his family and being a former CSEC operative. He was up for Spectre contention and things like that. And in Mass Effect 1, you get to mold him one way or the other based on your morality, In Mass Effect 2, he shows that dark side, becomes Archangel. He's super cool. Garrus has a little bit of everything you look for in a S tier character. He might not have as interesting of a backstory as Rex does. He might not have a moment as iconic as Morden curing the genophage, right? But he has good moments. He has an interesting backstory. He is a top tier romance. He is super cool. He is really funny. He is super likable. He's got it all. Garrus is he's the face of the S tier for me. There's really not much else I can say. Like, if you don't think Garrus is S tier, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. You might have to play the games again. He's an easy S tier. Alright, moving right along, we got a very interesting character, Kasumi Goto. Just like Zaid, she is a DLC character introduced in Mass Effect 2, and therefore she has those like when you talk to her, it doesn't go into conversation mode. She just has an X amount of sound bites she cycles through. You know what I mean? So I feel like that does hurt her character, in my opinion. And that's not necessarily a fault of her. That's more of the game design's fault, I guess you could say. But I still really like Kasumi. The thing about Kasumi is she's not the only one, but more so than other characters, she stands out. She is super unique, especially among the human characters for sure. There's really no one quite like Kasumi when it comes to Mass Effect squad mates. Even down to her gameplay. I don't think anybody else has Shadow Strike, And yes, Shadow Strike isn't really the best ability, but it just serves my argument, in the sense that she is unique. She's a one of a kind. And unlike Zaid, she's likable. She has a super interesting she has a more interesting backstory than some of the other characters that actually get conversations options. You know what I mean? I love her story with KG, and just when she's reminiscing about her. About how she met KG and the heist they went on, and about the girl that was painting. I'm like, yeah, I'm interested. I don't know what it is about her. She's just very interesting to me. She's also a little bit funny, like how she's crushing on Jacob, and she's snarky a little bit. She's fun to talk to and interact with, and I enjoyed learning about her. But the thing is, she doesn't really do much more than that. She doesn't really affect the narrative in any way. She's kind of just there. And that's because she's kind of limited by being a DLC character. But the thing is, that's not an excuse, especially when you look at the likes of Javik, who we'll get to. So because of the fact that she doesn't really influence the narrative in any way, she doesn't challenge you as a player or as a commander, doesn't help you grow. And she only has a quick cameo in Mass Effect 3, and the mission wasn't really that good. It was literally just walking around and clicking things, I think. So because of all that, despite having probably one of the best loyalty missions in Mass Effect 2, I can't put her any higher than B tier, but I will put her at the top of B tier. I really like Kasumi. For what we could get from a DLC character in Mass Effect 2, it's the best we could get. Zaid represents the worst we could get, in my opinion. Kasumi's everything that Zaid should have been as well. She has that extra, she has a bit more than just being a backstory. You know what I mean? She's fun to talk to, she's interesting, she has a unique personality, and she's funny, So I really like Kasumi. Okay, I'm really excited to get into this one. We got Legion. Talking about unique characters with Kasumi, Legion is a unique character. There's no other squad mate like him. Legion is probably one of, if not the most interesting squad mate, in my opinion. And that's saying something. He's definitely up there, at least when it comes to how interesting he is. Again, he serves as a conduit for the Geth. You learn so much about the Geth and their history through Legion. I could go on and on about all these things that make him unique and set him apart from the other cast of characters here. It's a shame you get him you don't get him sooner in Mass Effect 2 because he's just so freaking awesome. And he's not really with you for that long in Mass Effect 3, but he leaves such a big impact in Mass Effect 3. Just seeing him sacrifice himself in front of the Rannoch sunset to save the Geth is just one of the best moments in the game for me. You know, when Tally's like, you do have a soul, and he's like, I know, and it's just like, oh my gosh. He challenges what you think an AI is, you know, just similarly to Edie. He's up there, you know. He surprises you with how much you actually start to like someone like Legion. Legion doesn't have a personality, really. You know, he just answers yes and no. He gives information when asked. You know, he doesn't really go out of his way to make you feel good or support you or whatever. He's kind of just there. But the fact is, he's likable somehow. I don't get it. He's just so weird, but I can't help but love the guy for it, you know? And on top of that, like I said, he does get an iconic moment, you know? So I gotta say, Legion for me is an S tier character. Easy S tier character, but he's a little bit lower for obvious reasons, you know. I feel like he does lack a bit of depth when it comes to his character when compared to the other S tier characters up here, but he's just so interesting to me, so interesting, and that's the main reason why he's an S tier. You know, I gotta say, I was kind of hoping for a bit of a bell curve, you know. I feel like the best tier lists have a bit of a bell curve, you know, so they have less near the top and bottom, and it's kind of more congested in the middle. But I don't know. I really like most of these characters here, so we're getting there too. Next up, we have my personal favorite character, and it's Liara. And the thing is, I can't really explain what it is that I like about her so much. You know, maybe it's because she's hot. Maybe it's because she's nice. Maybe because she's cool, because she's the Shadow Broker. I don't know why I like her so much, but Liara is just, she's such a pleasant presence in the game for me. In Mass Effect 1, you know, she's that naive, young Asari scientist who's a bit nerdy but has that inherent badass inside, you know. And Mass Effect 2, that really comes out, and you learn that she's just so loyal, and she really does. I do feel like if you don't romance Liara, it is so obvious that she loves you still. She never really shows that she's just your friend, you know. I feel like unlike with Tali, if you don't romance Tali, who does she end up with? She ends up with Garrus. You know what I mean? But she's always that close friend you'll love, right? But with Liara, I feel like if you don't romance her, you can always tell she loves you.
Thank you for everything.
And that's why for me, my preferred romance is Liara. I feel like with a lot of the other characters I've mentioned, Liara's character is so enhanced if you romance her. Her moments that she has that are romantic, that they get that extra oomph. Like when you invite her to your cabin in Mass Effect 2 after the Shadow Broker DLC. That moment has that extra weight if you have that romance with her. In Mass Effect 3, when she makes the time capsule in Mass Effect 3 on Earth before the final push, that last moment where you link minds with her and embrace her, it has that extra oomph to it if you're in a romance with her. Romancing Liara is the best thing you can do for Liara's character. But the thing is, not everyone romances her, and it pains me to do it, but because of that, I gotta put her in A tier. You know, I love Liara, she's my favorite character, but I have my biases, but I try not to let it influence me all that much, you know. She's an easy top of A tier. No other character is gonna come close, but it's just, she doesn't have that interesting of a backstory, especially when compared to the other Mass Effect 1 squad mates like Rex or Tali. You know, I like her relationship with her mother, but she's so young when it comes to being an Asari. She doesn't really have that interesting of a backstory. but she is such a good presence in the game because she influences the narrative in several ways. She impacts you as Shepard, especially if you romance her. And on top of that, she's likable. She has her funny moments. She changes over the course of the trilogy. She has a lot of things that make a good Mass Effect character. But again, because of the fact that her character is severely hurt when you don't romance her, I feel like that prevents her from being an S tier character. If I were to just ignore that and consider only romanced Liara, she'd probably be the bottom of S tier anyway, at the bottom. So I'm trying to be fair here. So romance is a very tricky factor to consider when ranking these characters. It's different to Kaidan, because Kaidan's is more about the story, you know what I mean? Romancing a character, it's very different, it's more of a supplementary thing. So that's why I can't use the fact that she's an amazing romance option to force her up into S tier. So I feel like I've gone a little bit too long on Liara, but I just want to make it clear why I'm not making her S tier despite her being my favorite character, but anything lower than the top of A tier is just wrong for me, in my opinion. So Liara Tassoni, I love you, you're top of A tier. Alright, next up we got Miranda Lawson. I think this one's going to be another controversial one. I feel like a lot of people really, really like Miranda. I will say outright, I don't like her that much, but I do definitely like her. I usually start off by talking about the positives with these characters, even for the bottom tier ones, but I'm just gonna go ahead and get the negatives out of the way when it comes to Miranda. And my biggest negative with Miranda is she's just straight up sidelined in Mass Effect 3. I feel like it makes sense for a character, say like Kasumi, to be a bit sidelined in Mass Effect 3, or Zaid in Mass Effect 3. But for Miranda, your second in command in Mass Effect 2, the one who introduced you to Cerberus and the Elusive Man, the one who is a really good team leader, a squad leader in the suicide mission, this strong, independent, powerful woman who's just perfectly created to be a genetic masterpiece. I don't know. It just feels weird that she got sidelined so freaking hard in Mass Effect 3. I feel sorry for people who romanced her in Mass Effect 2. Like, she didn't deserve that in Mass Effect 3, especially if you save her from Kai Lang. It's just I don't know. That's my biggest negative when it comes to Miranda. She was just slapped in the face in Mass Effect 3 compared to other prominent characters. But the thing is, out of the human characters, she's got one of the most interesting backstories. She was created to be a perfect genetic warrior, just perfect genetic everything, which is why she's so freaking attractive and, why she's so confident. She's got that pride about her, that regalness about her. Like, she knows, you always feel like she knows something you don't. You know what I mean? If there's one word I would describe Miranda as, it's strong. And I feel like that's just evident if you've played the game. And on top of that, she's also vulnerable when it comes to her sister. There's something endearing about her undying dedication to protecting her sister at all costs. That for me makes her very likable for me. And me personally, I don't prefer her as a romance option. I feel like that adds something to her character that kind of distracts from the things that makes Miranda great. And that's, again, being that strong, second in command, powerful woman who knows what she wants and will get it one way or another. I really like that about Miranda, and I feel like romancing her kind of distracts that. You already get the vulnerable side and more sympathetic side with her whole family situation and her terrible upbringing and things like that. That's why I don't really prefer her as a romance option. And on top of that, weirdly enough, this might be controversial, I think it's better for her to die in Mass Effect 3 than to get saved in her mission. And I already know a lot of you are like, what are you talking about? Miranda's an awesome character. Why would you prefer her dying? And it's similar to Kaidan in the sense I feel like her death enhances her character. It enhances that moment of sacrifice. I feel like her sacrifice being the reason you find and track down and eliminate Cerberus once and for all, I feel like is such a poetic ending to her story. It's because of Cerberus that she got to where she is, but they're also the reason why her past was so messed up. Obviously her father was the main reason for that, but Cerberus definitely hurt her in ways that she didn't deserve. And I feel like, again, her sacrificing herself and for her sister's life as well. It's a great way to cap off that story arc with her. You know, the fact that she has gone literally to the ends of the earth, has done literally everything to protect her sister, and literally everything to help you and take down Cerberus once and for all. That's why I feel like her dying instead. And, you know, you kind of have to go out of your way to make her die, which is why it's even more weird that I do prefer her to die in Mass Effect 3. But I don't know, I just feel like that moment just means so much more when she sacrificed herself. Just because that's what Miranda would do, you know? But again, I can't get over the fact that she's a bit sidelined in Mass Effect 3, more than she deserves. And because of that, I can't really put her in A tier. I feel like she's got to be top of B tier for me. This one might be one I end up changing. I might put her at bottom of A tier, but you know what? Oh, I don't know. I just feel like they really wasted an opportunity in Mass Effect 3, and that's another reason why I like her dying. I feel like it enhances that moment even more, because that moment of helping you track down Cerberus, that's all she gets. That's literally all she gets in Mass Effect 3. You know, so I don't know. I'm gonna leave her at top of B tier. I might revisit that, but for now we'll leave her there. All right, it's Tali Zora time. I got a lot of Talimancer friends, you know, people who prefer to romance Tali above anybody else, even Liara. You know, like I mentioned earlier, I am a Liara stan, but I do love Tali so much. For me, if you don't romance Liara, Tali is the only option if you don't romance Liara, and vice versa. If you don't romance Tali, I just feel like you gotta romance Liara. They are the two best romance options, regardless of gender, in my opinion. I know a lot of people say that Garrus is an S-tier femshep romance, and I would tend to agree with that, but I just feel like the best romances in the game are Liara and Tali. So, but the thing is, the best thing about Tali isn't her romance, in my opinion, despite it being so amazing. Like, come on. The moment in the extended cut of the final push to the beam, right, on Earth in Mass Effect 3.
I need you to make it out of here alive, Tali. That's your plan. Build yourself.
Have a home. Come back to me.
That is probably one of the best lines in the entire trilogy, in any video game I've ever played, because what do we know about Tali? All she wants more than anything is to reclaim her homeworld for her people. And for her to say that you are her home, come on, guys. That's just her realizing that she's about to lose you. She doesn't want to lose you. And she doesn't care about anything else, not even her homeworld, not even her people. All she cares about is you in that moment. You are her home. Come on. Tali is an S-tier character. Tali is an S-tier romance. Like, and I haven't even gotten into how interesting she is. She, again, is another character that serves as a conduit to learn about another species, and that is the Quarians. And the Quarians are super interesting. I can't stand when people say, oh, the Quarians are annoying because of how, you know, bureaucratic or diplomatic they are. It's like, no, the Quarians are interesting. Come on, guys. Like, they are so unique when compared to the other species. The fact that they lost their homeworld and have to live in suits now, kind of like the Bolus, but for different reasons. You know, they were never meant to live in these suits. And the conflict they have with the Geth is so interesting, and the history they have, you know, and just the Quarian people's they're so familial, you know, they're so loyal to each other. It's so endearing, and Tali is the quintessential Quarian, in my opinion. She's smart, she's intelligent, she's resourceful, she's kind, she's loyal to her people, loyal to her friends, you know. There's really nothing bad to say about Tali. She's just so awesome, and she is an easy S tier for me. Honestly, for me, I gotta put her above Garrus. I just got to. And it's weird, you know, looking at this and knowing me, it's like, you like romancing Liara above Tali, but you're putting Tali as top of S tier while Liara is top of A tier. But for me, it's just because when you don't romance Tali, she still offers so much to the table. You know, all those things I previously said, you know. I feel like Liara she's not an S-tier character, she's an S-tier romance. There's a difference, you know? Tali is an S-tier character and an S-tier romance. You know what I mean? I can even admit that despite the fact that I prefer Liara's romance path to Tally's, you know? Tally just quite literally has it all. Alright, second to last character, guys. It's been really fun going through this, but next up we got Javik. Javik is just as interesting as Legion is, and that's saying something. Javik is a freaking Prothean. Like, what else do you want me to say? What else do you want me to say? Talk about being a conduit about learning about another species. Javik is literally the only way to learn about the Protheans. You know what I mean? To significantly learn about them. Everything about him is just so cool. He's the avatar of vengeance for his people. He was chosen as the leader of the resistance and things like that. You know, he's the only surviving Prothean, and all he wants to do is get revenge on the Reapers. And just learning about the Protheans and their true nature is just so cool. Like in Mass Effect 1, you picture the Protheans as these like angelic beings that are so peaceful and powerful and things like that. But through Javik, you learn they're very militaristic and they conquest other species and things like that. You know, and regardless of his past, though, in the here and now, right, in the present, when you get him and you talk with him and you play through Mass Effect 3, he's very surface level. You know what you're getting with him. He's just someone who wants to kill the Reapers. End of. Period. And that's a cool character, but that doesn't really contribute to adding any depth to his character. You know what I mean? So it's kind of similar to Rex in that sense. So for me, that's his biggest weakness as a character, is really when you look at him, you know what you're getting. You got a Prothean, he wants to get revenge on the Reapers, and that's pretty much it. You know, don't let that detract, though, from, you know, how interesting his backstory is and his history and how cool it is you get to learn about the Protheans through him, you know? So it's kind of this weird balance. I'm honestly struggling to think of what tier to put him in, because yes, he's very surface level when it comes to his motivations and whatnot, but at the same time, he's just so dang cool. He's just so dang interesting. Okay, so for me, I gotta put him just below Liara. He's gotta go in A tier just because, again, he doesn't have that depth that I look for in an S tier character, and he doesn't really have any standout moments. You know, his best moments are when you talk to him and learn about the Protheans through him, you know, but he doesn't have a Legion sacrifice. You know, he doesn't have a Morden sacrifice. You know what I'm saying? So he doesn't really have those good moments or things that are a storyline that's centered around them, like Rex or Tally. So I feel like that is just holding him back from S tier. But if someone was to throw him in S tier, I would not argue that, you know. But just for me personally, he's got to be A tier. If I didn't like Liara so much, he probably would be top of A tier. But just because I like Liara that much, he's going to be just below her in A tier, though. Definitely high A tier, though. Easy for Javik. And last but not least, we have Edie. I just love Edie so much, guys. I love her so much. She's just so, just like Morden in Mass Effect 2. In Mass Effect 3, I looked forward to talking to Edie so much. My favorite thing about her is just those conversations you have with her where she wants to learn more about what it's like to be an organic being with feelings and opinions and things like that. And the thing is, she transcends being just a simple AI, you know, more so than Legion does. And that's saying something, because I really do believe Legion has a soul, and he does make that final step between being just an AI with programming to having a soul, you know what I mean, with feelings. I feel like Edie takes that and just runs with it even more. You know, you really help her grow into her own person in the end. You know, she loves Joker. She wants to do what's right. She wants to take down the Reapers. She's angry at them. She loves her friends, and she wants to do everything she can for you, you know? And getting to that point from where she started as just a simple AI in the SR2 at the beginning without form, you know, it's just incredible writing. I love it. And on top of that, she's funny. Just her like deadpan deliveries of her jokes, you know. And also you just have that extra knowledge of the fact that she's only joking because she's just trying to be more organic, you know. She's just so funny, so fun to talk with, you know. And I love her relationship with Joker. She really enhanced Joker's character in a way I didn't expect. Joker was very surface level in Mass Effect 1. I loved his presence, but he was just the funny guy. He was the comedic relief, you know? Mass Effect 2, you have that fun bickering between him and EDI, and it adds that extra dynamic to his character. But again, he's still just a comedic relief. But in Mass Effect 3, her presence helps Joker even more, you know, because it adds that romance, you know, it helps Joker soften up and not just be so hyper focused on his job, you know, it helps him loosen up a little. And you know, to do that as a robot, to help someone else loosen up even though you're a robot, that just speaks to her character, you know? She's just so unique. I really appreciate what they did with EDI. Talk about taking bare bones material, you know, she was literally just a VI. That's it. Or an AI, I guess, in Mass Effect 2. And to go from that to where she ends up, like, come on, dude. EDI for me is an S tier character. I'm going to put her just below Rex for me. I really like EDI. But guys, that's it. We've ranked each Mass Effect squad mate in our tier list here. So like I said at the beginning, I'm gonna take a moment and just review this and make sure it's my ideal organization of the tiers and ideal ranking within the tiers. Alright guys, I've made one change and I spent a lot of time deliberating, and you'll notice I moved Legion from bottom of S tier to A tier, just below Liara. And my main reasoning for that was I feel like he lacks that connection I had with Liara, and lacks that connection that I feel I would expect from an S tier character, you know? Legion, he's a friend, yes, but he's really more focused on helping his people, you know? It's really, the reason I initially put him in S tier was really just because of how interesting I thought he was, but I just looking back at it, I just don't think that's enough to make him an S tier character. So I was like, I'll move him down to A tier. And then I had him at the top here, but again, this is my list, and I just really like Liara, so, and I connect with Liara at a deeper level than I do with Legion, so that's why Legion's gonna go just below Liara for me. And because we have more time with Legion to learn about him and the Geth and, you know, take him on more adventures and things like that, and he has a really good moment, he's going to go above Javik for me. You know, Javik and Legion are kind of in that category of squad mates where they're just super unique and super interesting. But again, Legion just has better moments, and we have more time with him. So he's going to go above Javik, but below Liara for me. And alright guys, I can confidently say that this is my Mass Effect squad mate tier list. Just some quick observations. The Mass Effect 1 alien squad members are cracked. They're amazing. Liara, Tali, Garrus, and Rex are just amazing characters. They're iconic, you know? And going off of that, you'll notice that a lot of the human squad members make up the bottom area of my tier list. They're just not as interesting. And I think a big reason for that is they can't be as interesting as the other characters because they're not aliens. There's nothing to learn about them. They're humans, you know? They don't have that unique aspect of being from a different species, so they're already handicapped in that sense. The highest ranked human character I have on my list is Jack, and that's because of how, you know, she has that depth that I really like to her character, you know, the tortured soul thing going on. But other than that, all the other human characters compose the bottom half of my tier list, you know? The outlier in that sense is Samara. I do think she's the weakest of the alien or non-human squad members, and that's just because I don't have as much fun with her. I don't have as much fun talking with her, but that she is still interesting, which is why she's in B tier. But again, I think the standout observations here is that I really appreciate characters that offer more than just one thing. You know, Liara, she's a really great romance, but that's her best trait. Javik, he's super interesting, but that's it. Jack, she's got a really good depth to her character, but that's it, you know? all these S tier characters, they offer so much to me, and they do it really, really well. A lot of them are good romances, like Tally and Garrus, but they're also interesting with backstories. They have great moments, you know, they're very likable. They stand out among the other characters, you know? It's just, that's what makes an S tier character for me. So yeah, guys, that's it. I mean, there's not really much else to say. I tried to be as objective as possible while still making it true to how I feel about each of these characters. So I gotta say, I didn't expect to be this happy with my tier list. And again, I'm not saying I'm happy with it because I think it's the definitive tier list of all tier lists, you know what I mean? I'm saying I'm happy with it because I feel like it's a true representation of my opinions. And that's really all you can ask for when you make your own tier list, right? So I had a lot of fun doing this, guys. I had so much fun, I think I'm gonna go ahead and make a Mass Effect side characters list. I might make that a live stream instead because I feel like that's gonna take a little bit longer, but that's gonna be lots of fun. You know, everybody from Joker to David Archer is gonna be in that list. So I'll do that at some point, but I hope you guys had as much fun seeing my opinions and hearing my arguments, and I look forward to hearing from you guys in the comments, or, you know, maybe sharing this around if you think it's a good tier list. If you're a fan of Mass Effect, I feel like doing a tier list like this is just something you have to do because it's a great way to reflect on the series and what made you fall in love with these characters, you know? So, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. I hope you guys had as much fun watching this as I did making this. You know, thank you all for tuning in, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.